All right, in this video, we're going to talk about some of the important tools to have when racing the Serpent 10 scale vehicles. So I have here is my entire set of tools that I bring with me. I bring these tools when I go 8 scale or 10 scale racing. Before I used to carry them on the top of a bag and I didn't really have them organized. I think these organizers are amazing and definitely worth the price. All the brands are out there. The Serpent has one, Hootie, X-Ray, all of them, they're all out there. So I'm going to cover some of the tools. Not all of them are as important, but they're all in here for a reason. So we'll start over here on the wrenches and Hex Drivers. 7mm. This is the Serpent one. There is also the MIP. I really like the MIP tools. 7mm is going to be on all your wheel nuts for the 10 scale vehicles. That's about the biggest purpose and biggest reason. So when you're swapping out tires, that's the tool you're going to use. I think the next most important hex driver is the Serpent 4.5. So this wrench is used on all the shock tower nuts, front and rear, the plastic nuts. I don't know of anyone else that makes a 4.5, but this is the best. Fits really tight, really smooth. Because you're using it on plastic, it's not really going to wear out. A must-have tool. If you're going to race 10 scale Serpents, you gotta have this tool. Next up is the 5.5. So the 5.5 is most commonly going to be used when setting your slipper clutches. Some of your standoffs, some nuts on there are 5.5, but the biggest on the 10 scale is going to be adjusting the slipper nut tension. So gotta have one of those. Next up in the, I'm going to say, important Serpent tools for the 10 scale vehicles is going to be a good quality 2mm hex. So a good quality 2mm hex will pay for itself. I like these MIPs for hex drivers because they just hold up. They hold up really well. They don't round out. The tips stay nice and crisp, which allows you to turn them, the screws longer before the screw strip because you got a nice good bite. So 2mm is used almost everywhere on the chassis, from the wing buttons to turnbuckles. Since nearly all the screws on the 10 scale vehicles are 3mm, 2mm hex driver is a must. So gotta have one of those. Hex driver next important is a 1.5. The 1.5 is used a lot of places as well. So if you have sway bars, the setup screws or set screws are going to be 1.5. On your wheel hexes, it's going to be a 1.5. The shock cap screws, 1.5. So the 1.5mm is going to be very, very important. Gotta have one of those when you go racing. So that covers the important hex drivers and nut drivers. Again, 7mm for your wheel nuts, 5.5 for your slipper adjustment, 4.5 for all your upper shock nuts, 2mm for nearly all of your chassis screws, a 1.5 for the set screws and smaller screws used. Coming up next is that I think is super important. I talked about this in the 8 scale video, is a good wrench. So the upper shocks, the standoff nut is a 7mm. So you can throw that on there and then use your 2mm to remove the shock standoffs. Turnbuckles, they're the 3mm. Works great for adjusting turnbuckles. These do kind of wear out. The gaps get sloppy, but it's a good tool. I think they're 10 or 11 bucks. Really good to have. Another tool I've been carrying around is it's this Empire scale or ruler, whichever you want to call it, and I use it for checking how far I have the shock collars down. I use it for adjusting camber links so that I get them left and right. A lot of times they'll say, hey, 1 degree toe in, toe out. I like to use this, and I just measure turnbuckle lengths. So front and rear, you can use it on there. You can use it to measure droop, as well as you know, your shock extension, how long you're running your shocks. So very good tool. Smaller than a caliper, fits really well here in this tool set organizer. Next coming up, I talked about this. Good set of shock pliers, you gotta have them. Aeromax makes them, ProTech, nearly all the big brands have them, Team Associated has them, and they're more than just for building and assembling shocks. So you have this piece in here that you use for inserting like ball cups into ball studs, or your shock eyelets, so you can use that to press them into the plastic. You've got the multiple different sizes for holding on to shock bodies. So you got 8 scale, 10 scale, 2 different sizes for holding shock shafts. So a must have tool. Even if you don't build the shocks very often, there's a lot of reasons to have this tool, so you should get one. Very, very valuable. These next tools are not as critical, don't use them that often, but I still bring them with me just in case. So a Sharpie, you never know, you might need to write on something. So a Sharpie, you know, it's not considered, you might not consider a tool, but I have found many uses for it. Some good scissors. So if the series or points races that you run require you to run stickers, I like cutting out the stickers so it's just a number, and a good pair of scissors works. You can find scissors anywhere. You don't have to get hobby scissors, but scissors are important. Next up, some curved like Lexan scissors, also important. You never know where you need to cut bodies. These are a set of kind of like tweezers, so use them for all sorts of things, holding screws, holding wires, all sorts of stuff. I also have a hobby knife. I'll put a fresh blade on it before a long weekend if I do plan on needing it. A pen, gotta have a pen. I mean, that's most of the tools. So I have this here, it's old school, I think it's a Dynamite, and it's one of those tools that has a whole bunch of tools in the handle, so you have a whole bunch of different sizes that are in the handle. I used to carry on just this, but these get kind of rounded out. Gets kind of tired swapping back and forth, and the handle and the 1/4-inch drive, they're just not as good. Brush, don't really need the brush too much on the 10 scale, mostly for tire dust, I guess. Really, a lot of the tracks today aren't very dirty, so I haven't needed that very much. But this is most of the tools I bring with me. I can cover more. I don't want to make this too long or too complicated, but these are the tools I bring. The final, most important tool I bring is a good quality pit mat.